At this time last year, I admitted that I don't love Christmas movies. Or actually, more specifically, I just don't feel like I need to watch the same movies over and over again each year. That, and I might have been born without whatever part of the human soul that makes a person interested in heartwarming tales about how gingerbread can bring us all together or whatever. I totally get why other people love that stuff, but it's not for me. And assuming I wasn't the only one like this, I did a series called 25 Days of Actress, in which I recommended 25 non-holiday films that I love, featuring performances I love for people who wanted something to watch, but I don't know, like don't want to watch that kid get his tongue stuck to that pole for the 400th time. I'll leave links in the description if you want to check those out. This year, I wanted to revive the series, but try something a little different. Instead of writing a list of my own personal recommendations, I reached out to 11 of my favorite critics, commentators, and essayists here on YouTube and asked them to contribute their picks instead. So that way, the list could feel like more of a compilation of different tastes, experiences, and preferences, rather than just, me and whatever I like. So here are the guidelines I gave them. Their pick: must have been released before the year 2000, must be reasonably accessible to watch, must feature a performance they love by a female-identifying, non-binary character, must not explicitly be a holiday movie, although there is a lot of gray area here. I mean, is Mommy Dearest a Christmas movie?
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Maybe. And finally, it must not have been on the list last year. Other than that, they could pick literally anything. You'll see films from totally different genres made decades apart, all totally beloved and compelling in their own ways. I'm incredibly grateful and thrilled that this talented group of creators agreed to participate in this little project, and I really hope that you enjoy their recommendations as much as I do. Be sure to check out the description box below, where I'll leave the links to their channels and indicate where you can watch their recommendations online. Before we jump into the list, I'd also like to thank the sponsor of this video, NordVPN. Right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount plus 1 additional month free when you go to nordvpn.com/bekindrewind. Stay tuned to the end of this video to hear more about this deal and how I use NordVPN to research for a recent video.
My name is Mina, and I run a YouTube channel where I talk about fashion, costume design, film, and culture. I don't know about you all, but come the holiday season, there is nothing I want to watch more than a happy, lighthearted film, no tears, no tension, just the good, fun stuff. And that's why, for my pick, I'm choosing the 1972 screwball comedy What's Up, Doc? Directed by Peter Bogdanovich, starring Barbra Streisand as manic pixie dream girl adjacent Judy Maxwell, and Ryan O'Neal as himbo musicologist Howard Bannister. The movie is actually an homage to screwball comedies of the 1930s and 40s, so you can think of Streisand as the Katharine Hepburn and O'Neal as the Cary Grant. O'Neal actually met up with Grant to prepare for the role, but the only advice he got was to wear silk underpants. I love this movie because it retains the charm of Hollywood's golden age, with the comedy relying less on vulgar and racy jokes and more on situational humor and relationship dynamics. I also think the film is more palatable for anyone who doesn't have the attention span for black and white pictures and/or transatlantic accents. So basically, it's a good movie to watch with the whole family. The plot is very simple. It's essentially a mix-up over 4 identical plaid overnight bags, one containing igneous rocks, one containing precious jewels, one containing government classified secret documents, and one containing women's underwear. And the cast of characters that get brought into the mix are just as eclectic as what you'd expect, including my favorite character, Howard's fiancée, Eunice Burns, played by Madeline Kahn. What's Up, Doc was actually Madeline's debut feature film, and she's absolutely hilarious. It's hard to act as a foil to the Barbra Streisand so perfectly, but Kahn's comedic timing is spot on. She plays the role of the shrill, micromanaging 60s housewife so well.
Don't count, Eunice. I hate it when you count.
1, 2, 3, 4.
She's just a tad mean enough to Howard to make you root for Judy, whose deliberate homewrecking is depicted as hilariously absurd rather than completely immoral. My favorite scene is when Judy pretends to be Eunice at the musicology convention.
You!
Eunice, Howard. Eunice. We've almost got that stammer cured. Sit down, dear.
How?
Howard.
It can get a little old, admittedly, to see the nagging woman trope, but unlike some older Hollywood classics, Eunice's storyline gets wrapped up nicely. She isn't just some annoying spinster who gets cast aside at the end as a lesson to women who berate their husbands. And if you still aren't convinced, please watch What's Up, Doc for the car chase scene at the least. The cars in this movie actually permanently scarred the concrete steps in Alta Plaza Park, and because of the damages, the city of San Francisco now requires productions to provide a detailed scene breakdown of everything that is going to be filmed along with their filming permit application. Dare I say, this movie is a wild ride, and like every great Barbra Streisand production, yes, she does sing a couple numbers as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Jaymes Mansfield. I can be found here on YouTube where I style hair and talk about my queer obsessions. The actress I've chosen to honor is the cult icon and crabby cook Jessica Harper in her role in Dario Argento's 1977 classic Suspiria. The film is part of Argento's Three Mothers trilogy. The plot is simple. Jessica Harper plays Susie Banyan, a ballet student who travels to Germany to attend a prestigious dance academy. But twist, it's run by the occult, and the students are dying left and right by the hands of a madman. It's soon up to Susie to try and solve this deadly mystery of the dance academy. What makes Suspiria so charming to me is because, well, it plays out sort of like a really, really violent Nancy Drew novel. Imagine it, Nancy Drew meets the murder coven. I'd read that. Though initially not the intended star of Suspiria, I mean, that was Dario's wife, Daria Nicolodi. Fox thought an American actress would sell better in the States, so one thing led to another, and suddenly Jessica Harper is now the star of Suspiria. Dario cast her without even auditioning her after he saw her in Phantom of the Paradise. And honestly, it was an amazing call because Jessica Harper is magical in this. She is the perfect heroine for this film. She has an every girl quality that you just can't help but root for. She's not overly glam or overly made up like most giallo actresses at that time, but I dare you not to be charmed by her big brown eyes, her curiosity, her not taking guff from really, really snotty girls at the dance academy. And she's precocious, like literally she can see around corners. She's so captivating in this, and honestly, she is the glue that holds this dreamlike film together. I promise you will root for her and really be taken along for a ride as she starts to figure things out. It's as gorgeous as it is gory. Enjoy Jessica Harper in Suspiria.
Michelle Pfeiffer understands the assignment. She has a primal instinct to turn even a cameo into a masterclass of serving face and sensuality, with a side of tough as nails bitch when necessary. I mean, hell, I've watched Sinbad multiple times just to hear her voice as Eris, because that movie is, well, the voice acting cast is very hot, I'll give it that. Within her decades-long film career, one of her most iconic performances is without a doubt Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, in the 1992 Christmas comic book movie Batman Returns. A sequel to 89's Batman, the Tim Burton feature stars Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader Batman, who is forced to go up against the Penguin, Catwoman, and capitalism, I mean, Max Schreck, to save Gotham for the holidays. In a brilliant but dark and silly film, Pfeiffer gorges on scenery, turning each moment on screen into a sexual awakening for young, queer kids all over the world. When we first meet Selina, she is a put-upon secretary working for Max Schreck, who dismisses her in a glaringly sexist way. One of the fun things about Pfeiffer's character work is that despite being so earth-shatteringly gorgeous, she is very easily able to navigate between being super vulnerable and delicate and being this absolute fire of a woman. It is probably the most positive Madonna Whore Complex performance I've ever seen in a comic book movie, but then again, we're not really giving female characters a lot of stuff to do in these films anymore. but I digress. After her boss throws her out the window and cats breathe life back into her, look, it's a comic book movie, it's fine. She returns as the chaotic Catwoman, complete with a Studio Ghibli-style haircut of growth. Despite criticism of the film for being overstuffed, it is hard to complain whenever Pfeiffer is on screen. And fun fact, that scene at the department store where she uses her whip to cut off the heads of mannequins, all Pfeiffer, and she did it in one take too. And in heels. This is just a perfect performance with perfect makeup and the most beautiful shade of red lipstick I have ever seen up until Maleficent. Like, it's perfection. With the Batman movie around the corner and the character already being a beloved IP darling, Batman Returns remains largely topical because of how good Pfeiffer was as Catwoman. Her character's backstory from the film was pure invention, but it felt perfectly inspired by the central aspects of the comic book anti-heroine. By giving Selina her own vengeance storyline as she spends the entire movie trying to kill her terrible boss, which, she's trying to destroy evil capitalism. We stan. And allowing Pfeiffer to go full, I'm going to eat this bird and lick my liquid latex catsuit to clean myself camp, it remains one of the best on-screen portrayals of the character, up there with Miss Eartha Kitt herself. Check it out now on HBO Max this holiday season.
Hey, I'm Matt Baume. I make videos about pop culture, and I want to show you why I think the best thing about the 1961 film West Side Story is Rita Moreno.
Smoke on your pipe and put that in.
If you've never seen it, West Side Story is a musical about two teens from rival New York street gangs who fall in love. It's Romeo and Juliet, down to the balcony scene. The movie follows the beats of the play. A boy from one gang falls in love with a girl from another, there's a tragic duel, and spoiler alert, the ending is not exactly happily ever after. It is a gorgeous film. It's shot in 70mm Panavision, often on New York streets, and the city feels like a living character. The light and the color is beautiful, stylized at times like a fairy tale, and the music by Leonard Bernstein and the lyrics by Stephen Sondheim are brilliant. But my favorite part is Rita Moreno. She plays Anita, a close friend and confidant to the main character, Maria. Anita takes charge of every scene that she's in. For example, take a look at her in the song America. It's a back and forth argument with her boyfriend Bernardo about whether the US is truly a land of opportunity.
Life is alright in America.
If you're all white in America.
Anita sings confidently about how she's going to create the life of her dreams in this country. She's bold and unafraid of speaking her mind and arguing back with the guys.
Terrible time in America. You forget I'm in America.
She's also, of course, an amazing dancer. Look at that backwards bend and snap. I could watch that all day. Rita's performance throughout the film is breathtaking, in part because of how much feeling she communicates, even when she has little or no dialogue. Later on in the movie, Anita learns that Maria's lover Tony has killed her boyfriend, and when she goes to tell her, she discovers that Maria had been with Tony only moments earlier, knowing what he'd done. Look at how much she says here with her posture and her eyes and one soft sigh.
Oh.
That gives me chills. This whole scene is great because you can see Anita wrestle with so many conflicting feelings. On one hand, she's furious at Maria for being in love with the man who killed her boyfriend.
He'll murder your love, he murdered mine.
But when Maria sings about her feelings for Tony, Anita realizes that she can't talk her friend out of being in love.
You should know better. You were in love. Or so you said.
You can see Anita wrestling with her feelings as Maria sings. Anita loved her boyfriend too, and she knows that love doesn't listen to reason. She's angry at Maria, but she also wants her friend to be happy. And by the end of the scene, she's put her love for Maria ahead of her hatred for her enemies, and she decides to help Maria and Tony escape. But in her final scene, Anita goes to find Tony, and his gang assaults her. The attack seems to confirm everything that she'd refused to believe about America in her big song. She took a risk to help these two lovers, but she's punished for her idealism. All of her anger and hatred comes flooding back in an instant, and her heart is hardened into furious cynicism with this line.
Don't let it go. So tell Chino that Tony's hiding in the cellar. Don't you touch me.
And before she leaves, Anita sets into motion the final tragic turns of the story. What I love about Rita's performance is that she makes a strong first impression with her singing and her dancing and her comedy, And as the movie goes on, she brings more layers of tragic complexity and nuance to the performance, conveying inner conflict, often without saying a word, all while maintaining her pride and her dignity. And that's just scratching the surface of her brilliant performance. There's lots to admire, but I think Rita herself summed it up best when she accepted her Oscar for this role.
Good Lord! I leave you with that.
This is Tessa from ModernGurlz, and I'm going to be sharing an incredibly underrated film that I was absolutely obsessed with during my adolescence. I present 1998's All I Wanna Do, aka Strike, aka The Hairy Bird. Yes, it went through a lot of different titles. The comedy features an instantly recognizable cast of 90s teen starlets like Kirsten Dunst, Gabby Hoffman, Rachel Lee Cook, Monica Keena, and Heather Matarazzo. Set in the 1960s, the movie follows Odette Sinclair after she is forcibly transferred to Miss Goddard's prep school for girls after her parents discover her intentions to have sex with her boyfriend. Her roommates, Verena von Steffen and Tinka Parker, are the school's biggest troublemakers and the leaders of the Daughters of the American Ravioli, a secret club where the members share their aspirations outside of the confines of societal expectations. As members of the DAR, they're expected to help one another achieve their dreams, which for Odette means losing her virginity. When it's eventually discovered that the school is going co-ed, the club revolts, hatching a plan to prevent the merger from moving forward, and understandably, chaos ensues. While not necessarily subtle with its intentions, this is no girl boss movie. With their mantra, no more little white gloves, the girls dream of a future where they're given the same opportunities as their male counterparts, but not without acknowledging and understanding the realities of their time and circumstance. The characters in the film are both entertaining and realistic, behaving like actual teenage girls and making mistakes and changing their minds. While the film plays to many of its young actresses' strengths, there's no denying that Kirsten Dunst is a standout, making Verena a far more complex character than she could have been. And I'd be remiss to not mention Lynn Redgrave as Miss McVane, the school's headmistress, whose performance will likely bring you to tears by the end of the film. Heathers, Clueless, Mean Girls, and Jawbreaker have made permanent places for themselves in pop culture as some of the most quotable teen flicks, and I personally think All I Wanna Do deserves the same. I guarantee that after a single watch, you'll find yourself saying "up your Ziggy" with a wah-wah brush.
Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin. I'm a film critic and I run a channel called the Armchair Auteur. It's an ongoing video series where I do new release reviews, short form video essays, and content about film, television, popular culture, pro wrestling, comics, lots of stuff. But today, Be Kind Rewind was kind enough to ask me on to talk about one of my favorite film performances of all time, and that is Pam Grier in
Jackie Brown.
Everyone loves a comeback story, and no modern filmmaker has been as dedicated to giving performers second chances on screen than Quentin Tarantino, a man whose propensity for helping to create career resurgences for the actors he loved in his youth is only outpaced by his well-documented love of spaghetti westerns, 70s music, and bare feet. So in 1997, a few years after giving John Travolta a new lease on life in Pulp Fiction, he brought blaxploitation icon Pam Grier back to the forefront of the pop cultural consciousness, facilitating arguably the finest turn in her storied career. Rum Punch, the Elmore Leonard novel on which Jackie Brown is based, follows the hard luck story of a 44-year-old airline stewardess who makes money on the side smuggling cash to the States for a small-time gunrunner named Ordell Roby. On a routine trip, she gets popped by the feds, and with her back against the wall must navigate staying out of jail without losing the crappy job she hates or the sad semblance of a life she so deeply regrets. For the only straight adaptation in Tarantino's filmography, he hewed to Leonard's text rather faithfully, save for the most important alteration on screen. The book's Jackie Burke, a white woman, became Jackie Brown, a part he tailored to Grier in a metatextual love letter to one of Hollywood's most unsung actresses.
If you had the chance, unemployed now, to walk away with $500,000, would you take it?
In the years since her heyday in films like Foxy Brown, Greer had fallen down the ladder, as many women over the age of 30 have before her, into supporting turns beneath the upper register of her talent. So the prospect of being asked to bring to life a tragic depiction of a woman whose best years are behind her, struggling to stay above shark-infested waters, may have seemed, initially, a little insulting. But in Leonard's prose, grafted to his own musical sense of sing-songy dialogue, Tarantino crafted a vessel through which Greer could channel her own story through this languid, lived-in neo-noir. In the film, Greer leverages the dramatic weight of her on-screen persona to add double meaning to every interaction, every loaded exchange. While Tarantino visually echoes her work in exploitation films like The Big Dollhouse, Greer brings the kind of nuance and subtlety to the role that only comes with age and experience, retracing her steps through the iconic roles of her past in a way that exalts them from the low-culture designation they'd previously been ascribed into something that feels closer to magic, a carefully crafted portrait of what it means to be a black woman in a world that expects you to be an immovable, unerring manifestation of inner strength.
You've been in the service industry 19 years and all you make is $16,000 plus benefits? Didn't exactly set the world on fire, did you, Jackie?
Yes, Jackie is strong and badass and cool in all the ways Foxy Brown and Coffee once were. But she's also allowed to be vulnerable, to be frightened, to be worn out, to be at her wit's end with the direction life has taken her. Though the film is something of a heist thriller built around the centerpiece of Jackie attempting to steal Ordell's fortune out from under his and the FBI's noses, it's also the closest thing Tarantino has ever made to a love story, with Robert Forster, another of the director's favorites, getting a second act, as bail bondsman Max Cherry acting as an author stand-in for the director's gaze. Through Max's eyes, and Quentin's, and our own, we see Jackie's quiet nobility, the undeniable fire inside her no amount of misfortune could ever snuff out. We are transfixed, and we want for nothing more than for her to finally get the win she so richly deserves. But maybe the best work she does in the film, a film stacked to the brim with killer performances from her peers, comes in the moments when she is all by herself, listening to music in the car, with no one to play off of. It's in these moments we see through Greer's eyes all the years of struggle and turmoil and how they never broke her down or crushed her under the weight of regret. They merely sharpened her, shaped her, and made her better than she ever was before. And quite frankly, ever has been since. To say Jackie Brown is Tarantino's best might start an unnecessary firefight in the comments, even if it is an indisputable fact. But it's damn sure Pam Grier's best performance, one whose final moments still bring me to tears every successive viewing. And honestly, what more could you really ask for from a film?
Hello everyone, my name is Yhara Zayd. You can find me here on my YouTube channel or here on Letterboxd as Benton Tarantella, talking shit. Today I'm going to talk about a film from the year 1997. It is Kasi Lemmons' feature-length directorial debut, Eve's Bayou. Eve's Bayou is the story of 10-year-old Eve, who is left traumatized after witnessing her father having an affair with another woman. What she sees incites a series of events that lead to Eve questioning her once seemingly picture-perfect family. As buried secrets become unearthed and the truth starts to unravel, so do the characters. None more so than Eve, whose newfound information troubles her beyond her own ability to comprehend. There is no shortage of splendid performances in Eve's Bayou, with a cast of greats like Lynn Whitfield, Debbie Morgan, Samuel L. Jackson, and the late Diane Carroll. Eve's Bayou is practically bursting at the seams with masterful acting. The strong cast no doubt buoys the film to legendary status, and it also makes the performances from the child actors, particularly Jurnee Smollett, especially impressive. In a movie surrounded by acting powerhouses, and at the tender age of 10, Jurnee Smollett effortlessly commands the space around her. She has no problem holding her own opposite Diane Carroll, no problem opposite Samuel Jackson, no problem opposite Lynn Whitfield. This wasn't Jurnee's first time acting. She'd done work on sitcoms and movies like Jack, and an episode of NYPD Blue, but this was her first big silver screen foray into dramatic acting, and she killed it. As the main character, Jurnee had quite the task. Eve goes through bouts of emotional turmoil. She gets angry, she lashes out, all the while maintaining a gentle and sympathetic overtone, an innocence that cuts through the growing malice for her family. Her innocence and curiosity folds into her anger, her frustrations, and the sorrows that she tries hard to bury. It's very easy in films for children to fall into one dimension, one shade. But Eve is layered, she's irrational, infallible, and Journey carries the role with such a naturalistic approach that she is more than capable of matching wits with all of her scene partners and drawing in unwavering attention on her own. For this, and other reasons of course, Eve's Bayou has been one of my favorite movies for years. It is haunting and poetic and has no shortage of magical realism and unexplained phenomena. It's a southern gothic full of family secrets, betrayal, lust, passion, envy, and the fickle nature of memory. Journey Smollett is also joined by a very young Megan Good, who is also pretty phenomenal in this. You can stream Eve's Bayou right now on HBO Max and be just as blown away as I was the first time I saw it.
Hi there, this is Daniel from Eyebrow Cinema, and I want to recommend Ingmar Bergman's 1951 film, Summer Interlude. Summer Interlude was an early triumph for young Ingmar, and a huge part of that is the central performance by Maj-Britt Nilsson. Nilsson plays Marie, a prima ballerina who, after rehearsals, unexpectedly receives the diary of her first lover, which breaks through her typically distant demeanor and stirs long-dormant emotions. With old longings rekindled, Marie returns to a small island, where flashbacks to 13 years ago tell the story of her summer romance. Nilsson is essentially pulling double duty here, playing Marie as both a bright-eyed teenager and a world-weary adult who's tasted life's bitterness. The range on display is remarkable. Nilsson crafts two very distinct personalities through subtle inflections and gives the impression of a lifetime's experience. The reservation Marie shows in the framing story is measured and compelling, but it's in the flashbacks where Nilsson and the movie as a whole really shine. Put simply, Nilsson is just delightfully charming as young Marie, a vibrant personality who radiates star power. Her passion for her art and enthusiasm in just living is purely infectious, and it's a joy to be around her. So earnest and good-natured, it's all too easy to fall deeply into the young romance and forget that this story is framed by melancholy. Much of the film's dramatic power derives from that contrast, from seeing the warm summer landscapes in the flashback become desolate and cold in the framing story. One of my favorite scenes is Marie's initial return, where we spend almost 2 minutes silently walking the grounds, Marie flanked by barren trees and the gentle howl of the wind. There's this eerie sense of mystery that becomes yet more powerful on rewatches when you have the scope of the whole story. And for as much as Summer Interlude is a coming-of-age story about life's fleeting nature, it's also much more optimistic than appearances may suggest. A movie about how the end of innocence need not be the end of happiness. The movie also looks gorgeous. Bergman and cinematographer Gunnar Fisher's creative partnership was really starting to flourish by this point, while its narrative is both thematically rich and just plain gripping. There's also a fluffy dog named Gruffman, and I like him.
My name's Rowan Ellis, and you can find me here on YouTube making video essays and commentary around queer pop culture and history. I'm going to be talking about 1996's slasher classic Scream, about high schooler Sidney Prescott, whose mother was murdered a year before the events of the film, and who is now at the centre of a slew of killings by a masked assailant, Ghostface. It's a brilliant horror film in its own right, but also a great meta-commentary on the genre itself, playing with the tropes and criticisms of other slasher movies. Now, the enduring image of Scream is Drew Barrymore, cozy knit sweater and perfect blonde bob, clutching a phone in her hand, eyes screwed shut in a desperate scream. Where we might expect this Hollywood royalty actress to carry the film, however, the iconic 30-minute cold open ends in her death. The narrative itself focuses instead on a more underrated performance from Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott herself, a character slasher fans are still chomping at the bit to see in the upcoming Scream 5 26 years later. The 1980s were jam-packed with iconic horror franchises, from Nightmare on Elm Street to Friday the 13th, but by the mid-90s the genre was seen to be flagging. Enter Scream, a movie that expertly walked the line between homage, parody, and genuinely brilliant slasher horror. Sydney seems, from her very first scene hurrying her boyfriend out of her bedroom window while wearing a dowdy nightgown, to be the quintessential final girl. She's a virginal survivor surrounded by bad influences. This teenage girl is at once nervous about having sex with her boyfriend, but also excited. A moment of giddiness at being wanted by this boy so badly. She's firm and decisive in the way she pushes him off when it gets a bit too much for her, but back to giggling as he says the cliche line, "Do you see what you do to me?" Her clear boundary setting combines with a light-hearted naivety to complicate the gendered nature of many female roles in horror. Virgin versus slut, good versus bad. The audience are given these mixed messages. She thanks him for being romantic, then flashes him, but it always feels like a cohesive character rather than a writer making a point. Her encounters with Ghostface only add to the complexity of her character. In one scene, she calls his bluff, unlocking the front door, almost daring him to enter the house. The steely resolve on Campbell's face as she paces her front porch, the laughter when she thinks it's a hoax, the shock and anger at the mention of her mother's death. It all plays out in under a minute, but we learn so much about our resilient lead in these micro-turns. In every scene through Campbell's performance, it's clear how Sydney is affected, even in small ways, by the murder of her mother a year prior. The walls she puts up to protect herself, the frequent middle-distance stares of a girl not quite present, the nostrils flaring as she fights to keep herself from crying. It would have been easy to have this backstory as merely a narrative cog, driving the tale forwards in a detached or melodramatic kind of way, but instead it's ever-present in a way that isolates Sydney while adding to our connection to her. The production used a mix of professional stunt doubles and choreography with the actors themselves in the fight sequences, and that mix of physicality and emotional performance is part of the horror of the movie. This isn't a supernatural killer under the mask, it's a real person, but real people can be just as ruthless, violent, and desperate. There's a reality there that makes the chase sequences even more disturbing, the idea this could happen to any of us. As Wes Craven himself has said, horror films don't create fear, they release it. I could honestly go on about this movie for hours. It's a brilliant franchise, and Sydney is a dynamic lead backed up by brilliant supporting characters like callous news reporter Gail Weathers, incompetent police officer Dewey, and outspoken best friend Tatum. If you're looking for a piece of classic horror that pays homage to the genre while trying something new, look no further than Scream.
Hi folks, my name's Serge, but you probably know me better by my YouTube handle, Cold Crash Pictures. If you know me at all, I mean. Anyway, point is, BKR was kind enough to invite me onto our channel this year to talk about one of my all-time favorite performances in an anti-Christmas movie. And I picked Katharine Hepburn's Oscar-winning turn in the 1968 period drama The Lion in Winter. It tells the story of King Henry II, who's trying to decide over the Christmas holiday in 1183 AD which of his 3 sons will inherit the throne after he dies. The proceedings are, contentious, to say the least.
You're not mine! We're not connected! I deny you!
Katharine Hepburn plays Eleanor of Aquitaine, King Henry's wife and queen. At the time the film takes place, Eleanor has spent the last 10 years in prison at her husband Henry's command. Something about her constantly trying to depose him?
You led too many civil wars against me.
And I damn near won the last one.
Their relationship is complicated.
How dear of you to let me out of jail.
It's only for the holidays.
But that's what I love so much about it. Hepburn's performance is one of my all-time favorite depictions of love as an inherently value-neutral emotion. Is love good or bad? Love is a feeling, like anger, hope, depression, or joy. Whether it's good or bad depends entirely on what you do with it. It doesn't automatically make you a better person. It doesn't automatically make you act in anyone's best interest, not even your own. And Hepburn's whole performance feels like a wry rumination on that thought.
I have a confession.
Yeah?
I don't much like our children.
Self-awareness isn't something I'm inclined to praise in any given performance, but here it really feels like the most honest way to acknowledge the inherent contradiction of loving someone who makes life miserable. With every line and every inflection, it's like she's saying, yes, I am in love. No, I am not happy about it.
Did you ever love me?
No.
Good. That will make this pleasanter.
And if that all sounds just way too depressing to ever enjoy as a viewer. You could also easily interpret this film as an indictment of hereditary monarchies, not love. You also don't necessarily have to like any of these characters in order to enjoy the film. I guarantee you this is the most fun you'll have watching other people make each other miserable over Christmas.
Well, what shall we have? The holly or each other?
Hey everyone, I'm Maya. I make video essays here on YouTube on the channel Broey Deschanel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram under that same name. My choice for this list, which evokes not one iota of holiday spirit, is a 1982 black comedy mystery film called Deathtrap. It was directed by Sidney Lumet of 12 Angry Men and Dog Day Afternoon fame, and it stars Michael Caine as a famous playwright named Sidney Bruhl, who was in the winter of his career and willing to do anything to stay relevant. The plot shifts into gear when one of Sidney's students, a dashing young man named Clifford, played by Christopher Reeve, asks him to review a near-perfect script that he wrote for one of Sidney's writing workshops. Sidney and his neurotic but lovable wife, played by Diane Cannon, devise a plan to murder Clifford and steal the script for themselves. What follows is a winding path of babbling, backstabbing, and friendly neighborhood clairvoyance. I personally love films that present like a play, usually taking place in one or two locations and having a tight focus on dialogue. Deathtrap itself was actually based on a play by Ira Levin, and you can really see how Lumet is honoring the medium of theater here. But the biggest reason I love Deathtrap is because I've never seen an acting performance like Diane Cannon's before. She has these big, terrified, wistful eyes and huge early 80s hair, and she just plays this character so over the top. But there's something so endearing about it that you can't take your eyes off her. And the craziest part is, she was nominated at the Golden Raspberries that year for Worst Supporting Actress. Well, I strongly disagree. Justice for Diane. Michael Caine has an incredible mastery over some pretty difficult dialogue, and Christopher Reeve, who was just coming out of his Superman era, really shows the breadth of his talents here. All in all, it's a really fun watch, and if you're looking for something suspenseful, look no further. Thanks again, Izzy, for letting me take part in this. I hope you all have a very happy holidays.
To close out the list, I'd like to add my own recommendation for your consideration. Try 1995's La Cérémonie, directed by Claude Chabrol. The film begins as Sophie, played by Sandrine Bonnaire, is hired as the new maid to the Le Lièvre home. Sophie befriends Jean, the local post office worker / chaotic busybody who can barely contain her curiosity about the Le Lièvres at every possible turn. The family isn't mean to Sophie exactly or anything like that, but they tend to be obliviously patronizing to her. So Jean encourages Sophie to rebel. Jean turns out to be a bit of a bad influence, and before long, things turn violent. This film is quietly bonkers, and Isabelle Huppert, being the greatest actress alive, absolutely chews up every single scene she's in. As Jeanne, she presents as innocent and friendly at first, but with darting eyes and her devil-may-care approach to everything, she slowly reveals herself to be wildly unhinged. Huppert gives Jeanne these strange little idiosyncrasies that are so captivating, and her portrayal contrasts so perfectly with the Le Lièvres. The home is so tidy and serene until she barrels through, making herself at home, knocking things on the floor, and speculating on their personal lives. This was Huppert's first Best Actress win at the César Awards, which is like the French Oscars, and her 8th nomination overall. When you watch the film, you'll absolutely see why she won. It's streaming right now on the Criterion channel, where it's described as a late career triumph from Claude Chabrol that exemplifies the new wave auteur's mastery of suspense and twisted psychodrama. I mean, who doesn't want to see Huppert in a film with that description? Thank you again to my amazing collaborators in this video. I hope you all enjoyed this list, that you have a wonderful holiday season, and that it's full of movies you love, whether you're watching them for the first time or 100th time. I'd also once again like to thank today's sponsor, NordVPN. I recently did a video about Deborah Carr and was searching desperately anywhere for any interviews that I could find. Turns out, perhaps unsurprisingly, a lot of them were on British sites. But that as an American, I didn't have access to those resources. To get around this, I simply logged into NordVPN, changed my location to the UK, and voila! I got to hear all about how Deborah dealt with stage fright during her turn on stage in the Cornice Green. I wouldn't have been able to watch this without NordVPN. NordVPN is a great resource that's very intuitive and easy to use. With NordVPN, all your internet data stays safe behind a wall of next-generation encryption. And even better, they don't track, collect, or share your private data. You can choose from over 5,000 servers in 59 countries, meaning you can enjoy instant secure access to hundreds of streaming websites worldwide, all securely done from your phone or computer. You can even connect up to 6 devices simultaneously on just one NordVPN account. Right now, you can get a 2-year plan at a huge discount, plus 1 additional month free when you go to nordvpn.com/BeKindRewind. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/BeKindRewind, or click the link in the description below to get in on that deal today.